Hello, everyone, and thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of Sophisticated Sunday. I'm going to be your reader today, Negzo, and this is my co-host,
Osun Funke.
and she's not to be.
Fucked with.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to be talking about sex and spirituality, and we're not going to be approaching it from the typical context where we're trying to tell you who to have sex with, who not to have sex with, how to get married, those typical religious conversations. Instead, we're going to talk to you all about how sex works. Sex works as a magical and ritualistic practice in African spirituality. So the first question that I'm going to ask, you talked to me about this earlier. I'm asking this question. I'm not going to ask, is sex a spiritual act? Because we know in African spirituality, it should be assumed that sex is a spiritual act because there are deities that patron over the action of sex and patrons of eroticism. So I wanted to ask you, why is sex a spiritual act?
Well, I think it's absolutely a spiritual act because you have the joining of souls, realistically. When two people are joined together in a sexual act, they're literally one person. You cannot distinguish where one person ends and the other begins. And so it's a merging of physical bodies as well as souls. And so that would make it spiritual.
I think of it as a spiritual act because when you think about creating a child, the fact that you have one particular type of cell that's a feminine energy, another particular type of cell that's a masculine energy, you put those energies together and then it creates a soul. But those two energies separate from one another are not a soul. They're just, two halves of polarity. So when you put those things together, here it is, you created a new spiritual being. Therefore, sex, we must assume that it's a spiritual act.
Right.
In addition to that, in my experience with my readings, where clients have, for example, I'll give them a reading and they'll say, well, that doesn't sound like me. That's not accurate to me. And I'm like, well, is this someone that you're having sex with?
Exactly.
And then they say, oh, wow, that's my girlfriend. That's my boyfriend. Yeah. That's who that applies to. And the thing is that what they don't know is once they exchange energies with the person that they had sex with, that person's energy is overwhelming theirs or suppressing theirs, and it's going to show up in a reading.
In the reading, that's something that we don't often think about, and you absolutely need to, because your aura or field of energy becomes littered with the energy of people that you have sex with, and realistically, it remains so forever and ever. Especially if you're not one who is doing any kind of rigorous spiritual work, to rid yourself of foreign energies. If you're not cleansing on the regular basis, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're walking around with remnants of the energy of everybody that you've ever made love to.
I agree with that. Some of the signs, some of the behavioral signs that indicate that you have exchanged energy with someone that you've had sex with is, your appetite changes. The person that you were sleeping with likes to get up at 2:00 in the morning and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and you just happen to be allergic to peanuts and you're craving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at 2 in the morning. Your behavior will modify itself or be very similar to the person that you're having sex with.
Right.
Or even the fact that you may be sleeping in the bed with this person and just, sharing space with them. And you may not have had sex with them on that particular night, but you have a dream or a premonition throughout the night that tells you something about the person that you're sleeping with. Or you find out some private information about them or something that's going on that they may not have announced to you. And that just shows that sex is a spiritual act because you can be a receptor, kind of like, when we're thinking about, vibrations, electromagnetic frequencies, you can be a receptor. You can take on you can absorb someone's vibration, and then the spirits are going to translate to you a message about their vibration, but that interaction can only happen because of a sexual energy exchange. And so I wanted to ask you, in your experience as a reader, what are the signs that let you know that a client has sexual energy on them that they haven't cleansed away?
Well, their reading will often be all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be disconnected. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when I'm talking to them about things I'm seeing, they will be like, "Well, that doesn't sound like me. I don't know who that is, or I don't know what that is."
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that people have to understand is, if you are sitting with or having a reading from a reader who is legitimate, they are absolutely seeing what it is they say they see.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no question about whether or not this information applies. It's just more about, do you know where it applies in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when I see that kind of disconnectedness, it is absolutely related to foreign energy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, when I get those readings, the first thing that they're asking is, well, how can I cleanse the energy from me? How do I get it off? And I'll tell them, well, first you want to stop having sex with this person. Well, and that's difficult for a lot of people to do, because
Mm-hmm.
sex is a very pleasureful and addictive practice. And it's not something that you want to immediately disconnect from if you don't have someone else in line to fill in the gap. That being said, the ways in which you would typically want to cleanse your energy to remove that person's footprint or sex print from your aura is for you to do a cleansing bath.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, the easiest way to do that would be a simple sea salt and lemon bath.
Yeah.
After having sex with that person, meditating and visualizing yourself cord cutting the energy or the connection from that particular person. Now, I also wanted to ask you about something else. Is it possible that you can exchange ancestors with people through sexual contact?
No.
You don't think so?
Only in the case of only when a child is created,
Mm-hmm.
or in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, when a child is created, because now the ancestors are shared, and that
Mm-hmm.
baby is growing within the mother, and so now those ancestors must watch over her, and they will be protective of her, and they will even speak and communicate to her on behalf of the child that she's carrying. And so once you have had a child with a person, you are able to interact with their ancestors. You can't command them and work with them on the same level as you can your own ancestors, but there's absolutely a tie there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And what about people that carry, let's talk about promiscuity.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is promiscuous, does that show up in a reading?
It does, yeah.
How do you
It depends on how much of an issue it is for the person.
Right.
Because I'm not here to slut shame. You can have sex with as many people as you want to. It's just, how does that affect you, or if it affects you? If
Mm-hmm.
if your aura is littered and your mind is all over the place and your money is funny and you got all this other stuff going on, there is a good possibility that it is related to all the energy that you're sharing. And that's the other thing you guys have to understand, especially men. When you are having sex with a woman, I'm speaking to men specifically, or whoever you're having sex with, it doesn't have to be a woman. When you are having sex, period, and you ejaculate, there is so much energy being released. There's actually a practice that you guys can look up called ejaculation, where you actually do not physically ejaculate, but you still experience orgasm, but you recycle the energy.
I can teach you all how to do that.
A lot of you are going to have a really hard time doing that, because you have to be in absolute control of your chakra and your chi. It's a lot of kundalini energy, etc. But it is possible, because every time you ejaculate, you are releasing a huge amount of energy that some of you cannot afford to lose. You can't afford to give it away. And that's essentially what we're doing when we're having sex. We're giving away pieces of ourselves.
For men to master the art of ejaculating, what you need to do is you need to understand how to use the root chakra, which is not just the penis, but also your anus. Mm-hmm. And you need to learn how to do kegels. Yes, you need to learn how to do kegels. You need to learn how to control your prostate gland, which is going to happen by way of when you are watching porn, practice masturbating. And what you want to do is, as you are about to ejaculate, you want to take a deep breath. Inhale, push your stomach out, and when you exhale, make sure your stomach goes in. As you're doing so, squeeze your anus, which is going to help you to control the climax, so that your mind will orgasm, your body won't climax, and you won't ejaculate. It will help you to last longer in the bedroom, and it will also strengthen the strength of, or enhance the strength of, the actual ejaculation process when you finally do choose to release. Think of it like a volcano erupting. You put a top on it and it's going to boil over, but as soon as you lift the top off, it's like, and it's just everywhere. Somebody's on the ceiling like in Scary Movie. And so, ejaculation, I just taught you all how to do it. It is a spiritual practice. And it will keep you from giving away your ashe to the wrong person.
Giving it all away.
So I wanted to talk to you about hexes and curses, especially generational curses that can be passed through sex.
Okay.
Either because your parents were having sex and they genetically passed those curses down to you through your bloodline, or because you were having sexual intercourse with a peer, for example, and you contracted one of their spiritually transmitted diseases. So, do you know anything about that?
Well, I do know that. Gosh, that's a lot. That's a lot of different things.
Right.
Generational curses. Let me start there. I do know from experience and from intuition and just understanding of spirituality, I do know that desire is a spirit. Okay. Desire itself is a spirit. And a lot of times, these types of spirits, I would even dare say it's a family of spirits, addiction, excess, and that type of energy. And we find those type of energies very present in places of ill repute, strip clubs, bars, porn sites, porn related chat room, deviant kind of things. No judgment, you guys.
Instagram.
No judgment whatsoever. It's just the fact that if you engage in those types of activities or frequent those types of spaces, you run the risk of contracting a spirit. There is actually, I cannot think of the name of it, but my ex-husband is from Guinea. And he told me a story once about a particular type of spirit that lives in nightclubs. And she's a woman. She takes on many forms. And you have to, when you go to the nightclub, you have to be sure that the woman that you're dancing with, or if you're considering leaving the nightclub with a woman, you have to make sure she has feet. Because she may not have feet. She may actually be a spirit posing as a human being. And then you leave the club with her and God only knows what happens to you and your soul. And so that's just a cautionary tale that is told in his culture. But I think that there is something to that. Because a lot of times, think about the energy that people are taking into these kinds of places. Desperation, loneliness, despair, depression, and we know that there are spiritual entities that feed off of those energetic profiles. So I think that's one way we contract these spiritual STDs. And then we pass them along to people who are feeling those same types of things, who are attracted to that same energy, who have a feeling of lack, who have a hole in their soul or a hole in their heart that needs filling, who are lonely, who are depressed, who are unsure, anxious. All of these things that indicate really they're all fear-based. And there are absolutely entities that feed off of that.
I believe that. I can believe that. Because when I was growing up in the mega church, they would often talk to us about the transference of spirits and how that some people, they would say, you look in some people's as families and you see children that are out of wedlock, chaotic families, people who may not know the identities of their parents, so on and so forth, and they say, those pathologies are the equivalent to generational curses. And those sorts of families, you want to not have kids by people in those families. I can say from my personal experience that I'm thinking of a relative that I have that we shunned this particular relative for having a child and choosing to marry into a family that a family where pedophilia is pedophilia and incest is rampant. And so it led me to start thinking about how it is that people not only transfer energy, but people can consume energy
Absolutely.
as well. Because I can talk about in my own personal experience where I stole someone's energy, and I was just trying to have fun, practice some stuff out, see if it was even possible. And as soon as we finished, this person's like, "Damn, I feel like you took a piece of my soul." And so, yeah, and in me but there was no exchange. I'm wondering to myself, like, what did you receive? What did you receive in exchange? There have been times where I've had a sexual encounter with the gentleman, and he ended up, he's like, I moved 6 months to another state and I was starting another job and all this other stuff. And sometimes your bodily fluids can anoint someone's destiny when you exchange those energies with them. And I want for everybody out there to just consider that when you think about the Kardashian family, you all wonder why it is that they choose to reproduce themselves through African DNA, and why it is that their male spouses end up psychologically or financially destitute after having sexual encounters with that particular family. And so you have to be mindful that there are some families that are completely conscious of the power of sex. They know how to rob you of your energy, because sex is a financial exchange. But being robbed,
absolutely. Ugh.
Being robbed is a type of financial exchange. It's just that you don't get anything in return. If somebody multiplied with their capital and then they subtracted from yours.
Can I just talk about that for a second? Only the financial exchange part. Because what you guys need to understand is that the currency of the universe is energy. Okay. And so sex is absolutely a financial transaction, because you're exchanging, giving, receiving, taking, stealing, whatever the case may be, energy. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that. Because
energy is capital. And when you think about the Kardashians and how they've amassed their wealth and how it's multiplied, their wealth multiplied tremendously after they started robbing African Americans of their energy. And look at them. Those African Americans they're not
any better because of their
metaphorically, right? Metaphorically at its highest level, a sexual exchange should leave you looking like the Garden of Eden. But when you look at what's Khloe Kardashian's ex,
I don't know anything about those people.
The one that's on drugs. What's Khloe Kardashian?
Oh, the basketball player guy, Lamar.
Lamar Odom. He's not a flourishing forest. He's a impoverished prune. But their family is thriving. And after these women have children with these men, they can communicate with their children's ancestors and make sure that they can make sure that the paternal parent stays robbed of their energy by having, controlling the child and controlling how the child chooses to worship or not that part of their African ancestry, to venerate that part of their African ancestry. Will they identify and serve that part of themselves in addition to the parts of the Kardashian identity that is...
You have to look at that culture as well, because Armenia is basically gypsy land, which gypsies come from Egypt. And then so you have that whole pantheon and Kemetic science and African spirituality, really.
And so this is why you need to research. You not only need to get tested at a local clinic with the person that you have sex with, but
Absolutely.
you should also do anthropological and historical research into this person's ancestry and see what their people practice, because the way that they have sex may be for a different purpose than the way that you may be having sex. You may be having sex purely for pleasure, while someone else is having sex for profit.
Absolutely.
And there may not have been a financial exchange in the beginning, or when you finish and you got to put the change on the dresser. There was just an energetic exchange, and the next thing that you know, you're on drugs, and the person that you had sex with has a reality television show. So then I wanted you all to consider, what types of I wanted to ask you, what types of magical practices or techniques could be used to enhance people's experience with pleasure in sex? Is there a bath they could do? A spray?
I have quite a few recipes.
What spiritual aphrodisiacs can they use?
Well, spiritual
or magical?
You want me to give away my secrets?
No, just let's say, well, I know that rose petals and a red candle.
Right. Rose petals are one that's very common, and associated with romance, pleasure, passion, chocolate, would be another one. These are common things that we all kind of know. Sweet smelling perfumes, sweet things, honey. Honey is a really big one, even in Ifa, honey can sweeten any situation.
Right.
You add honey to baths. You put honey in your mouth, under your tongue before you speak to your lover. Different things like that. But if you need specific help in that area, if you are experiencing a lack of pleasure, a lack of desire or sex drive, these are absolutely things that can be worked on spiritually. And I would urge you guys to go to blackspectrumnetwork.com and book a reading or a spiritual counseling session, because we can absolutely help you with that. Again, that's something that would have to be looked at individually, but as a whole, we can enhance our sex lives by, first of all, being spiritually attuned to our auras or our higher selves. Because sex is an exchange, we need to make sure that our partners have what we need. And we don't know what we need unless we are in touch with our higher self. And so you don't need an orgasm. You need a complementary aspect of that person's personality, of a complementary, a mirror, a complementary, you know what I'm saying? Mirror of that person's destiny, those parts of who that person is and what they actually are able to add to your life. And so if you're in a relationship and the sex is off, it's probably because you guys are not a very good match, especially because we know that sex is a very basic interaction between people. Very important and spiritually significant, absolutely, but it's a very basic act. And so if people are not compatible sexually, I think that it speaks to incompatibility on a much broader scale. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that. Some of the things that I know that magical techniques that I know of that will help people to increase their the pleasure or the feeling or the
enjoyment.
Yeah, enjoyment of sex is, a red candle. Just really start with the red candle. It can be a birthday candle. It can be one from Dollar Tree. It doesn't matter. But you want to burn that red candle before you lay down with that person. And having sex on the floor as well. Having sex on the floor is another way to enhance that particular experience with a white sheet or a red sheet. Tea light candles, rose petals, okay? And then when you're thinking about honey, for example, putting a little bit of honey under your tongue before you communicate with your lover to sweeten the communication, but also honey is great for foreplay. Chocolate as a magical item is great in foreplay. There's also something that you made me aware of. Taking a shower with someone, using using a certain scrub that's specially made that Osun Funke can make for you. And after you finish showering with that particular person, giving each other a massage with certain oils.
Anointed oils.
Anointed oils. Can you give one off bat that would increase?
Cinnamon. Clove.
Okay. Those are good ones.
Cinnamon, clove,
strawberry.
Even bay leaf. Bay leaf would act as is very good for protection. You want to protect the interaction that you're having with this person from meddlesome spirits. Even protect the union and the relationship. I wanted to ask you about the red candle. You said just light the red candle before the act, but should they be praying and meditating anything particular over this red candle?
Yeah, if you have time, the things that you should pray for, you should pray for a mind-blowing orgasm. You should be praying that your body has an increased or heightened sensitivity to the other person's touch. You should be praying that this person can perfect their rhythms, or that they are going to be able to command or speak to your body without using their words. Those are some of the things that I would suggest for you all to, and also for you all to, for this to be a sacred act, not something that's just purely carnal. It's not something just purely for pleasure. Would be something that I was also tell you to. Music is another good one. Creating a sex playlist, but specifically designing the playlist with intending for you to have an enhanced sexual experience. The final thing that I can suggest for you all, and this is just a framework, putting things under your bed. So you may use cinnamon, and take the cinnamon and draw a sigil. Or you may go to Dollar Tree and get one of those small pink candles and put it under your bed and light it underneath the bed while you all have sex. There are so many things that you can do to enhance.
Don't burn your house down. Just caution.
That's true too. That's true too. But yeah, there are many things that you all can do to enhance your sexual experiences. So what is sex magic exactly? Because people would think that what I just described to them is sex magic. That's not sex magic.
No.
That's not.
Sex magic is the act of using sex magic is using the act of sex,
right?
Particularly the energy created during orgasm to transmute into manifestation energy. When you are orgasming, your chi is higher and stronger at that moment than it is almost at any other time in your life. That energy is stronger than fear. It's stronger than happiness. It's stronger than sadness. It is the highest form of energy that a person emits. And so if you and your partner are able to time that just right and to climax together and focus on the same desire, the same goal, then theoretically and actually, you would be able to use that energy, that orgasmic energy, to manifest whatever it is you desire.
And to add to that, the difference between enhancing your sexual practices with magic versus sex magic is that you want to follow her instructions when you're climaxing. And you want to follow my instructions to prepare the space to have a great sex magic experience.
Absolutely.
And for those of you that are giving away free dick and free pussy and then you're broke as fuck, I think the best thing for you to do is to fuck somebody and to imagine yourself making some money. Imagine $888,888.88 in your bank account when this or $69.69 in your bank account when you're having sex with this particular individual, and you will see money manifest. And that person that you're having sex with may pay you some money. You never know. So, what deities in African pantheons govern and control the power of sex and fertility?
There's so many, there's so many. Of course, everybody thinks of Osun as this, sex goddess. So, I have to say Osun. But even a lot of the other feminine water energies, Yemaya represents fertility, motherhood. With Oya, you kind of have that she represents anger and rage and power. And so you kind of have that whole, I can't think of the word that I'm looking for to describe that type of woman, but even there's a sexiness about her,
Right.
you know. In a lot of instances, Eshu is represented with an erection. Like his statues,
Mm-hmm. The phallus.
He will literally have an erection. There's a lot of sex woven into the pantheon
Mm-hmm.
in Ifa and just the Yoruba culture.
In the Haitian Vodun, we have the Gede, and the Gede are known for being erotic, hypersexual. Baron Samedi is known for helping. I wouldn't say as much with fertility because he can, but definitely a protector of children and to ensure that the child does not die. So, but when we're thinking about helping someone to conceive a child, it would be Urzuli Freda, whom you want to work with. And, but let's say you need more sex, like sex as intercourse. You need more intercourse in your life. You definitely want to work with the Gede because they are partiers. They love sex. They love drinking. They love all the things that people consider to be, all the things that Western society considers to be profane, they venerate on their side as sacred. Therefore, you would want to work with those entities when you are not having enough sexual intercourse in your life, because the Gede may be walking further away from you than you would like, so you need to work with them and bring them closer to you. So if you are someone, for example, that's finding it difficult to conceive, that means the energy of Freda is not walking with you very closely. You may have other energies and entities that are walking with you, such as you may be a career woman and you're struggling to have children. You may have Dantor walking very closely with you, and then Freda is far off. You would need to do a ritual with Freda so that we could increase your fertility, because she would govern that, that she's a patron over that particular spiritual faculty. That being said, I would also encourage for you all to really consider working with an experienced priest or priestess in regard, when you're having some sort of sexual or fertility related issue. The other point that I wanted to make about sex and African pantheons, African Americans have historically been described as hypersexual. It doesn't matter the type of African American you are. If you're if you're a heterosexual African American man, people are going to presume for you to be a rapist or a brute. If you're an African American woman, you are
a whore.
Exactly, or they'll the Sapphire Jezebel stereotypes. If you're a gay African American man, you're also sexually stigmatized as well. Gay African American women still sexually stigmatized, trans women, so on and so forth. So we know that sexual stigmas are rampantly affecting the African American community. That's simply because African cultures are a sexual culture. Sex and spirituality are one and the same.
Absolutely.
And when you think about you read about how anthropologists studied West African people, the first thing that they used to identify African dysfunction was, they were trying to emphasize differences between how Africans have sex or display their body parts versus how Europeans would do that. And so it makes sense that, in order to destroy the African family, you have to demonize our normative sexual practices.
Absolutely.
And you also have to demonize our normative spiritual practices as well, because they're one and the same. Sex and spirituality being the same, versus when you look in other pantheons, you have deities that'll govern love, romance, and the spirits that govern sexual intercourse are not spoken about, or they are considered to be Luciferian, and that's just in that particular realm of things we don't deal with, and you just need to have sex in marriage. So
where do you guys think that the missionary position came from? Why is it called that?
So fuel my fire, take me higher, I'll be your liar too. Cause when we're here, there's nothing better than the skyline view.